What if a quiet 13-year-old boy from Chicago's South Side was destined to become the first American pope? Picture Robert Francis Prevost, sitting at a worn desk in a Catholic school, his calm presence earning him the nickname Holy from friends and even his brothers. This isn't a legend. It's the true story of Pope Leo XIV, whose journey from a gritty neighborhood to the Vatican's balcony challenges everything we think about faith and fate. Step back to the 1960s, Bronzeville, Chicago. St. Mary of the Assumption School was a place of strict nuns and restless kids. Robert shared a desk with John Down, now a retired teacher in Texas. John recalls Robert's rare kindness in a world where fights sparked easily. He never argued, never fought, John told People magazine. Once he gave a kid new socks because his were torn, no fuss, just care. At 13, Robert carried a wisdom most adults chase forever. Why did this boy stand out? It wasn't loud piety. Raised in a devout family, his father French-Italian, his mother Creole, Robert saw God in small acts, a shared meal, a kind word. While other boys at St. Mary's followed rules to avoid trouble, Robert's faith was his core. John says he already dreamed of serving, maybe as a priest. We called him holy because he was. John laughs, his voice warm with memory. Fast forward to May 8, 2025. The Sistine Chapel buzzes as cardinals vote. White smoke rises, and the world meets Pope Leo XIV, the 267th Pope and the first from the U.S. John, watching from Texas, gasps, "I went to school with him." The shock isn't Robert's rise, but an American Pope. How does a boy from Chicago reach St. Peter's? Was it divine will or a heart that never wavered? This story matters because it asks, what shapes a leader? Is it grand moments or quiet kindness? Robert's path, from a classroom to the papacy, holds clues. What did he do next that even his friends didn't expect? Stay with me, because the next part reveals a choice that changed everything, showing a side of Leo XIV that lights up his mission today. The boy called Holy didn't stay in Chicago's comfort. Robert Francis Prevost heard a call that pulled him to Peru's jungles, where faith wasn't just a belief, but a lifeline. What kind of person trades safety for hardship? And what did those years reveal about the man who'd become Pope Leo XIV? In the late 1970s, Robert joined the Order of St. Augustine, seeking humility and service. Ordained a priest in 1982, he didn't choose a cozy U.S. parish. Instead, he volunteered for Peru, a land of poverty and unrest. Why? Friends say he was drawn to the margins, where faith held people together. Imagine Father Prevost, barely 30, in Chulucanas, dusty roads, scorching heat, families starving. He taught math to kids without books, said mass in shacks, and listened to the broken-hearted. A Peruvian priest recalls a widow who came to Robert desperate. He gave her his week's food and found her work. He lived like us, the priest said, no distance. Peru was Robert's crucible. For 20 years, he learned Quechua to reach indigenous communities, faced guerrilla threats, and buried children lost to disease. As Bishop of Chiclayo by 2015, he still walked to remote villages, mud on his shoes, to confirm kids. If Jesus walked, so can I, he told a colleague who urged him to delegate. Even as a bishop, he shunned pomp, living the simplicity he preached. These years shaped Leo XIV's heart. Peru taught him the poor aren't just to be helped, they're teachers. When he became a cardinal in 2023 advising Pope Francis, he carried this wisdom to Rome. In 2025, the conclave saw not just his holiness but his humanity forged in sacrifice. But how does this priest navigate a divided world as pope? What choice from Peru now guides him? Keep watching, because the answer might redefine what leadership means. If a Chicago boy and a Peruvian missionary could become pope, what kind of leader is he for a world unraveling at the seams? Crowned on May 8, 2025, Pope Leo XIV isn't just the first American pope. He's a man with a vision that could mend a fractured church and a planet crying for hope. But there's one principle, born in the dust of Peru, that's guiding him. What is it? And how is it challenging everything we believe about faith, unity, and the courage to love? Step onto the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica, May 8, 2025. The crowd roars as Leo XIV, once Robert Prevost, speaks. We must be a missionary church, building bridges with charity and love. These words aren't rhetoric. They're a vow, tying back to the boy who shared socks and the priest who walked Peru's muddy paths. But bridges? In a world where wars ravage Ukraine and Gaza, where the church wrestles with tradition versus progress, how do you even start? The answer lies in a single word: dialogue. Not polite chatter, but a bold, humble exchange that dares to face conflict with open hearts. In Peru, Robert learned this the hard way, mediating a clash between farmers and a mining company. He spent days listening, not preaching. The result, a shared water system, came from their talks, not his orders. Dialogue is courage, he told a colleague, trusting God's voice in others. Now, as Pope, he's scaling that lesson to the world. On May 14, 2025, he offered the Vatican as a mediator for global conflicts, urging ceasefires in Gaza and Ukraine. War is avoidable, he said, his voice firm yet pleading. Peacemakers make history, not those who sow suffering. His call for Middle Eastern Christians to stay in their homelands despite violence shows a heart that believes faith can endure even the darkest storms. Dialogue shapes his church, too. Leo XIV faces thorny questions. How far should Catholics open to LGBTQ+ communities? In 2012, he criticized Western media's embrace of homosexual lifestyles and opposed gender ideology in Peruvian schools. Yet, Jesuit priest James Martin calls him open and kind. Since his election, he's nudged bishops to adapt Pope Francis's inclusive policies, like blessings for same-sex couples, to local contexts, a move that sparked hope. Sarah Kate Ellis of GLAAD sees a chance for Leo XIV to build on Francis's progress, creating a church that welcomes all. But he's cautious, balancing tradition with compassion, aware that every step ripples across 1.4 billion Catholics. What's striking is how Leo XIV's dialogue reaches the margins. Peru taught him the poor aren't just recipients of aid, they're teachers of faith. In his first week, he visited refugees in a Rome shelter, not a grand hall, sitting quietly as they shared stories of loss. The poor are our teachers, he said, a conviction rooted in burying children in Peru and feeding widows from his own plate. This isn't charity. It's a challenge to a world obsessed with power, asking us to listen to those we often ignore. So, where does this leave us? Leo XIV's papacy, barely a week old, stirs a question. Can dialogue, born in a boy's kindness, tested in Peru's hardships, heal a divided church and a broken world? John Down, his old friend, believes it can. Robert was always the still point, he says, bringing people together. The road is steep. Scandals, declining faith, global unrest loom. Yet, there's a bold move Leo XIV is planning, one that could redefine the papacy itself. What is it? Keep watching, because the answer might just change how you see faith's future.